greeting you again live on the road here on I-24 just outside of Chattanooga, heading to Alabama to work some existing clients, hopefully to sell them some more insurance. So glad you could join me today. And the title, the topic for today's short is the paradox of final expense sales systems. Really, in a bigger sense, the paradox of sales systems in general. So I want to start with a little background to this because there's something that's particularly interesting about selling, in the sense that it's one of these professions to where you can have literally 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 people to tell you to go to hell repetitively your entire career. And as long as you sell the other 20% or the other 25%, you're literally in the top tier of success relative to your peers. And the reason I call it a paradox is because every other career that's out there, your job is to accomplish a specific goal all the time, the majority of the time. You go in, if you have a success rate of 25% bagging groceries or clerking at a desk, you're going to get fired. The strange thing about selling anything is that even with a success rate of 20 or 25%, as long as the metrics is there, as long as the money is there, typically your return on investment is going to outweigh the losses that you incurred on the lost opportunities that didn't entail in the sales. And so the reason this business, if you guys have ever done any kind of day trading or even any kind of gambling, the same mentality applies. You're going to lose more often than not. Take day trading, for example. Many of the best systems have a very small success rate, but the success rate pulls in a return of 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1 on the investment. And then when you average all those numbers in together and then take out the losses on the deals that the trades that went sideways and didn't work out to your advantage, you find that at the end of the day, you're making a lot more on the wins, even though they're a vast minority of your total production or total achievements. So the thing and the reason I'm making this is it's important for new agents, specific to final expense, or really new people to sales in general, to understand. You got to get used to hearing no. You got to get used to being rejected. You got to get used to people not buying what you're selling. That is a natural part of this business. And it is totally unnatural, especially as a newbie, to hear that all the time and still be doing everything right. Case in point, an example, I've shared this experience many times to agents who are new to this business. I've had many circumstances to where what I've done, I did 15 appointments over the course of 2 days, didn't sell anything till the 16th appointment on the second day, and I wrote it was equivalent of like 3,500 or 5 times the average case size on that one case. But if you ask me if I was doing anything wrong or how my circumstances were going prior to that, I would have looked on the surface, if I was brand new, it would have drove me nuts. And it really still drove me nuts, even though I was 2 or 3 years experience at that point. But that's the point, is that sales is just a weird profession. You spend a lot of time, especially if you've got a longer sales cycle, not making money. You're preparing to make money when you close a deal. But the outcomes of those sales tends to be a lot higher, and you make a tremendous amount. So it takes a level, what I found in the sales business, a level of emotional discipline that you're not going to be required to have in many other regards, because the outcomes don't necessarily equate to a normal wage earning type of job. So if you get up, you go out there, and the thing is the numbers may pan out in all sorts of different ways. And what I mean by that is it's logical right now for you to say, hey, okay, if Dave's telling me if I buy 20 leads and I close 4 or 5 deals, that I'm where I should be, and that's good. That all makes sense in your head. But it's the interaction of actually implementing the system and experiencing the frustration. Maybe you're going to go 15 door knocks and work 15 leads and not sell a single thing. And it's not till the last 5 that you actually make the sales, kind of like the story I just told. Again, the thing is the perspective to have in sales is not even a day-to-day or month-to-month. It's really a quarter-to-quarter type of profession. But we cannot help ourselves being human. where everything is instant gratification, where we have to see results immediately, or we're going to throw the damn thing away. We cannot help to some extent being affected by the immediacy of what we're doing, and to apply our own personal biases or our personal opinions or whatever to the said circumstances. And sometimes that immediacy of the human condition gets in the way of the reality of the quarter to quarter scenario relation of what sales is really all about. And it takes a long time to get totally adjusted to that. Truth is, you probably won't ever be adjusted to that because, again, salespeople can run hot, they can run cold, and there's no change in what they're doing or how they're doing things. So I put this together, again, really for the sake of the newbies, as an explanation to how sales really is, as well as the experienced guys, too, to remind them that, look, this is a simple business, but the head game is what doesn't make it easy. It's a head game. And a lot of the problems that we have in this business, at least when it comes to final expense, stem from all up here in the brain. The brain getting in the way of making things happen. The brain making things more complicated. Your irrationality dictating over a system that is by default going to produce more failures than wins. And it's hard to remember that the wins are going to be usually exponentially outsized in the return to make up for those losses. So yes, a career in sales, you're going to spend a lot of time doing certain things that you need to learn how to accept. Number one, you're going to waste a lot of time. You're not really wasting time if you think about it, but you have to understand that if you go out in the field, you run a bunch of appointments where nobody shows up or tell you to go to hell, that's part and parcel of what you're doing. If you're not getting that, in fact, if everybody you see is buying from you, you should be a little worried. There's a catch there somewhere. And many times, if there's that many buyers, your commission's going to be lower. You're not going to make as much because it's probably more of a transactional sale. So accept the fact that you're going to be dealing with a lot of frustrations, a lot of head games, and a lot of people are going to waste your time, and mop it up to the fact of the reality of what sales is about. Because if you don't get that, if you're just selling everybody without the frustrations, then you're probably in a clerk job where everybody comes up to you and is ready to buy because they didn't need to be sold. They came in and decided that this is what they were going to buy. They picked out what they want. And so your job gets a minimum wage because you don't need to do anything to get the sale. That's why we're paid the commission we are, because we have to deal with all the bullshit. That's part, again, of what this profession is about, is dealing with BS. And that's what makes it difficult for some to accept that. And like my wife, for example, I'll tell you this, many times she'll come in, I'll come in from a day and I'll say, yeah, I didn't sell anything. She'll say, well, you just imagine what you could have done other than that if you didn't waste your time with these deadbeats. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. But then on the other hand, we have to work those deadbeats to get to the golds, right? I mean, we cannot separate the deadbeats from the gold, because every single call that we do, yeah, absolutely, Robert. Every single call that we do, we have no control over what kind of outcomes we're going to get when we're in the field. We really don't know what to expect. The only variable we control is ourselves, right? And so, if you understand the system and how a system will produce a minority of positive outcomes, typically, then you've got to accept that the majority of the time you will be dealing with this to wade through to get to the good stuff. So you have to be accepting of these negative outcomes that happen. And you've got to be able to control yourself and self-discipline yourself to accept being frustrated and not take it personally. It's like I talked in the last video, don't take rejection personally. It is part of the struggle of a salesperson to absorb this, to deal with this, and make it something that he's doing and dealing with and living with. It's just part of the deal. You're never going to get around it. Part of this, as I put these videos together too, is this is all personal self-motivation for me. There's no more powerful way to learn this business than to teach it, because you can self-reflect on the things that you learn, and you can self-reflect on the things that you've experienced. And when you teach things, you become more responsible too, as a person who's actually doing what it is you're teaching. And the reason I say this is I've always had some level of me, as an engineer or a tweaker, I've always tried to improve processes, make things better. But there's a certain element to where you have to get to at least this is me talking about myself. You've got to get to where you accept a level of good enough is good enough. What I mean by that is you have to accept that nirvana or the state of kumbaya can never be achieved. There's no way we're going to reach some, universe where there is no violence or there's no crime or there's no bad things that happens. It's the human condition. There's never perfection that we can achieve. We certainly want to improve circumstances. That's why we try to learn new concepts, apply new skills, true of this business as it is of any other. But there's a point to where good enough is good enough. And the pursuance of improvement has returns that are not exponential, that are just not going to necessarily have an outcome that's as profitable for the time spent involved. So how does this relate to final expense? The basics, the fundamentals are where the success in this business are at. Again, the paradox of this system is that you can buy direct mail leads that are vague, vanilla, that everybody uses, and as long as you follow the system and you put the work ethic behind it, you follow a sales system, you follow a prospecting system, you have good carries, you basically do everything I tell you to do, then you'll probably see some pretty good results. And as long as it's within that range, good enough is good enough. And that's always the key thing you should go for, because again, the goal is to scale, not necessarily become elite. You can be good at this job, selling final expense, and then you can scale it to a level of income that you want. You want to do 10 appointments a week, great. You want to do 40 appointments a week, you can do that too, and do the exact same thing you did at 10 appointments. Just minor modifications. So with all that said, last I want to just inform you guys, if you guys are interested in joining the mentorship program, where you sell final expense under my final expense agent mentor agency, feel free to go to feagentmentor.com. If you're happy with your agency and you'd like some coaching on a small group basis and a one-on-one basis, and get access to my training material and severe is the right word, but significantly discounted leads, check out my final expense inner circle program. It's a new low-price monthly membership program where you get access to a lot of my training, and you don't have to be an agent of mine to get it. So that you can go to, I think if you just do a Google search for final expense inner circle, it'll pull up, and you'll get some details that way. Or you can just send me a message on my website, and I'll be happy to send you some more information. Other than that, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining today. We'll see you on the flip side.